Thank you so much. If we can begin. Thank you so much. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Mercier.
Here.
Council Getchier.
Here.
Council Jeunesse.
Thank you so much.
2 present.
And our third member, Wayne Jeunesse, will be here, but he's running a little bit late. But we do have a quorum because we have 2 people here. At our regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, January 3rd, the following motion was read and referred to the Neighborhood Subcommittee. It was a motion response. It was response D, recycling and trash bin replacement. I would have had this meeting some time ago, but this is the only spot available because everybody was vying for a position. So today, we're going to hold the Neighborhood Subcommittee, and this involves recycling in the neighborhood. And speaking about neighborhood, someone from the downtown district has just arrived. So Wayne is here, so let's see. And also present with us today is Gunther Wellenstein. He's the DPW Deputy Finance Director, as well as April Hertz, our recycling coordinator. Welcome aboard. Thank you very much. I won't be too hard on you, April, because I know you're relatively new. And you know, we got to start somewhere, so I'm very happy to welcome you on board. We do have some questions, and I'm sure you don't know all the answers. I don't know them either, but I guess people were concerned about the discussion of recycling and trash bin replacement, and we just probably wanted to know how that went. How does that go? What if I'm calling you up and I said, Miss April, I have a trash bin that needs fixing. Do I get put on a list? How does that work for the people that are watching in today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a few ways that people can report a broken bin. We have a portal on our website where you can directly report damaged bins, and it could be as simple as a broken lid, or the whole cart could need replacement. People can also call in, and we've started to track a call log to make sure that those requests are in one format, and then we just transfer them into that tracker. So that is through Civic Plus and under the Request Tracker tool. And through that, over the last 4 years, we've seen a steady increase of 32% of more reports. That has to do with a lot of things, but mostly the barrels are getting old. So we have a lot of requests that we have to facilitate, and we only have one full-time worker that specifically does any type of removal of barrels, additional barrels, and those replacements. So with that, what happens is once we receive that tracker, we print it out into a form which is attached in the examples that I've provided today. And that tracker will explain what section of the city that property falls on, what's wrong with the barrels, and we can provide the cart numbers in order to put those into the account and track that asset for the city. So from there, we mostly sort them by section of the city. We don't specifically just go off of the ticket number when it was reported, because it makes more sense for us to use our time more efficiently by sticking within that city section. We will make exceptions to that if somebody's bin was stolen or went missing and we have to go replace it because they don't have a barrel at all to use. But for the most part, we're split up, again, by that section, and we get a lot more reports in the winter, but we are able to still maintain a pretty standard. We give a 2 to 3 week time frame, but we always do it typically within more of that. We don't really reach 3 week is what I'm getting at, unless there may be a supply issue, then sometimes it's pushed off a bit.
So you say that if I called today, it would take 2 or 3 week of a time frame before it would be completed?
Yes, just to give you an idea, because we also match up to the collection schedule. So people know that recycling is collected every other week. So if we have to go out to a recycling bin, say we have to replace the whole bin, we're gonna go when it's opposite of your recycling. And say it was just your recycling day, well, we still have other people that submitted before you, so that doesn't mean we're gonna go out that day.
So you had a full-time position that was empty, but you have since filled that position, right?
Yes, that is for enforcement.
And you have a part-time position that needed to be filled, and did you fill that position as well?
Yes.
So are there any more positions that need to be filled?
No, those are all the positions.
All right, and I will open it up to my colleagues, but also I want to say that City Councilor Vesna Noon is here with us this evening, as well as City Councilor Corey Robinson is here. And we have our new solicitor, Helene Tomlinson, so thank you for being here. I want to say about what I observed today, as a matter of fact. I went to work as usual. I came home and I could see that all Andover Street had their trash and solid recycling and trash both was today. And when I went home, the trash and the recycling was all picked up except one right on Andover Street now was a big recycling green bucket, and it had a green tag on it, and it was there was a warning or whatever on it. They did not pick up what was in it. And the reason for that, I could clearly see, the cover wasn't closed, it was open quite a bit, but you could clearly see that they had plastic bags all stacked inside. Evidently, they were throwing their trash in a recycling bin, so that was a good thing. That was a good thing. Someone is doing their job, and I'm very grateful about that.
It's also important to clarify for the people who are watching that even if you're putting clean recycling in a plastic bag, they will not collect it. That is considered contamination because the plastic bags can cause damage to the machine, so they will take that whole bag and just throw it out once it gets to the facility.
So they got it before they took it, so that was a good thing. Maybe they'll learn what they did wrong. Councilor Janez? I'm all set, thank you. Councilor Getchia?
Sure, thank you. So obviously, in 2019, it's about 19 recycled barrels a week that break. So in like a 3-week period, you're talking 57. And then you're moving up to 2020 where there's 21, and then you get the big jump for 21, which would be about 35 a week. And then currently, you're talking about 43 for 2022. That's what I was just doing on my phone, trying to figure out the numbers. My question is that, has this been highlighted, and how do we resolve that? Because it's going longer than 3 weeks. I get the calls. And, you know, most people, and some are elderly, and they're actually, like a wheel broke on one. And the person was in his mid-80s, and he's trying to pull the thing out every week. And he reaches out, he calls, and then he keeps calling because they're not really getting a voice on the other end. They're getting, okay, put it in this, but there's submissions. And as you get older, I don't know if maybe it's not true, but technology you don't always keep up with. So they get upset. They want to just talk to somebody, hear a voice. How do we communicate to them that I think some have to be moved up and moved back and try to get them, like you said, obviously you're doing it by districts, but how do we remove this to get it down to a week? Because if something's broken, somebody wants it out of there to get the other one in there so that they can actually get their stuff going. So I think our patents, because of maybe help, like you're saying, I don't know that answer. I think that some things you've been challenged with that people were lackadaisical at for a period of time, and now it's catching up to the city, and you just happen to be the person who fell into the position at the right or wrong time. I'm not sure of that answer, but the solution has to happen. We just can't keep saying, well, you know, we're short-staffed. The public doesn't want to hear it anymore. Their taxes are not short-staffed. Their taxes are going up, and built in their tax base is the recycling and trash, which to me should be on an enterprise fund so that you could actually monitor it much better. I know that's above your pay grade, and maybe something that we can talk to Assistant DPW Director of Finance, Gunther, about in the future. But in order to hold people accountable, we have to figure out what is the baseline for the issues. It's not fair to charge residents a certain amount and just say, hey, you know, well, we're short-staffed and deal with it. It's not easy to do when you're elderly, or we're looking at some of these bigger places that have multiple units, and they're just now throwing it on the sidewalk or doing what they do. So I guess the challenge going forward would be, how do we manage this going forward? What is a recommendation? And I'm not going to put you on the spot to do that, because management may get very upset with you if you say something that we can't deliver on. But I think that's the challenge for you, is how do we go forward with putting something in writing that we can manage this with? And I think over the past few years, we have been negligent in trying to educate the public and keep them educated on what actually trash and recycling actually does in the city. We have a lot of nice pamphlets, but I don't know that we're hitting the targeted audience. So for me, I think that trash and recycling is a major issue in the city. It's almost like snow and ice, except you're on it year-round. They get away from it. In another 6 weeks, we'll be out of this, and I don't think the winter was as good as what people think for a plow driver, because ice is worse than snow. But I think that we have to do better in how we educate and how we get back to certain people in the public and what they're designed to do, and we're not doing well at it. Our phones, I don't know about Councilor Janess and Councilor Mercier, but I know our phones get blitzed with calls on broken barrels that were left. They were told 2 to 3 weeks, but it was a lot longer than that. And maybe they don't communicate well to you guys, but they like to talk to us.
I definitely think that it's important to note that for a period of time when we weren't fully staffed, it was just 2 individuals, mainly one, answering the phone, because since the field tech was out in the field, that left it on to me, and a few of the other DPW employees would assist as they could. But we do get quite a few calls in, so I understand it was very frustrating for a lot of people who weren't able to get their call heard. That's why, and I know technology is not always the answer, but that's why we do have that portal to kind of meet the needs of some individuals. To look at now, as we are fully staffed, we have repairs that are probably not sitting more than a week and a half. However, we are waiting for a shipment to come in on some of those. We have about 75 backlogged just for replacement lids, which is not, people can move the barrels without a lid, so it's not something we want to see is the backlog, but now we've identified a location to store extra carts for the future, so that way we don't have to see this issue.
One thing that I want to state to the public is, in your role, DPW's role, the worst thing that happened was COVID, because people were home more. And when people are home more, they get to nitpick the city more. So that's what ends up happening, is the workload didn't even stay level for Public Works. It actually went up because of that time frame. So when more people are home, the more things they see, the more things that get reported, the more it takes people to go the other way, whereas when people are actually out of their homes working, they're not at home to see all these things. So I think that was one of the negatives that came for the Department of Public Works through all of COVID. Their workload actually went up and not the other way, as some people have seen in the past. Yeah, the road work may have went one way, but when you get your phone calls, you got a lot more. And I just would ask that this board, maybe through a motion, that we would come back with a report on what is the flat line on how can we address these, because those trash barrels, bins, are older than ever, and they're just going to keep aging. So where are we with recycle bins that have been replaced in the last 5 years and the ones that were not going forward, because I think that that's going to be the challenge, is how are we going to see, and what is the life expectancy of one of these things? And I know it depends on, the way it's treated, but there has to be somewhat of a range where the life expectancy is. So anything that's over that life expectancy, maybe we should look at it and say, okay, we know that these will be coming very shortly because they can only take that up and down so many times. Thank you.
When we talk about COVID and we talk about extra trash, well, not only are you home more, but you're probably eating more, so that generates more trash. I know it did for me, and it as you can really probably see. But I just wanted to say also for this board that it came to my attention about, like on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you think if you had an enterprise fund, a solid waste enterprise fund? So I don't really know the answer to that, but I reached out to someone in City Hall that's in the know, and they said that they're in favor of it if the council is willing to amend the trash fee to cover the cost, because right now the enterprise fund would be in the red because we are only having household trash fee at $125 per year per household, and that is not enough. What would be covering it would be if we raise the fee to $268 per year per household. And I don't know personally myself that I'd want to do that to people, so you got to weigh all sides of it. Would it be something we'd want to do? I don't know, but that's the answer to that question that I wanted to share with you. Thank you, April. Gunther, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, Councillor, you had asked me to hopefully shed light on there was information in a previous motion reply on code enforcement, so I've provided you a handout with, it's labeled a legend, so it may require you to have the previous motion in front of you, but I did some screenshots. So for example, under the column that's labeled compilation, you'll see that there are 2 codes, one for DDS and one for DPW, that can tell you which department is doing the curbside enforcement. As you learned from that motion reply, both code enforcement and solid waste and recycling are doing enforcement on curbside trash. And then in the section below, there's an explanation for ticket issued, and pretty much as it sounds, where a violation was found and a ticket was issued on site. And below that, the closed and matter unresolved, I believe that's the code you were asking about, Councillor. And basically what happens is the system for entering tickets allows an inspector to go back the following week to see if trash is still a problem, or 2 weeks later to see if recycling is still a problem. And if you go and the cart isn't out, well, that matter is unresolved. And so it does age out, so there will be times where something has that code, and it's kind of like continued without a finding, right? There's nobody at fault, but the next time you go, it's not there anymore. So that's why it's still in the system.
So Gunther, SWR is solid waste and recycling. What's DDS now?
That's the Department of Development Services. That's code enforcement at DPD.
Okay, right. Okay, let me ask you. Now the source says property. What do they mean when it says manual? What is?
So what happens when a complaint is entered by phone, that would be manually entered in the office.
Oh, manually entered.
When we arrive on scene and we find it at the property, that's just the code that the inspectors, so it wasn't prompted through a complaint. They were out doing their routes, they're doing their enforcement, and they were at the property when they discovered the issue.
Okay, beautiful. That makes sense. All right. Thank you for doing that. Yeah, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but knowing I think you know everything, I thought you knew that. So only because I hold you to a higher standard
Thank you.
anyway. Any of my colleagues out there have any questions? Vesna? Any questions? You're all set. Is Corey still here? All right. Any further questions? Any concerns that you have, how the city here, the council can help you better do your job to serve you better?
I think it's important to understand that, Gunther did raise up the department, but has grown a lot since then. There's a lot of small things that have fallen through that need to be caught up on. So while repairing those cracks in the department, we're also still trying to maintain the service at the city level. With that, there's also lots of new laws that are coming out, so the department it's foreseen for it to continue to grow. You see that with the textile ban and the mattress ban. But in Mass DEP they have a greater plan to continue to reduce waste by 90% by 2050.
Let me just say this. I remember years ago when you were the recycling coordinator, Gunther, and you had what we're going to call them volunteers, and a lot of seniors that worked there, they were volunteers, but they got an abatement on their property through their volunteerism. That would kind of help you, wouldn't it? Do we still not offer that? Do we not offer it anymore? I thought that was a good program.
I believe that was a coordination between the assessor's office, where they would get a rebate on their taxes, and the Council on Aging, where they would draw the volunteer pool from. So I can check. I don't know if COVID disbanded that program or if the funding,
Yeah.
but absolutely, they were awesome in the office.
Yeah, they
Not so
were.
much curbside, but definitely for answering
Yeah.
the phone and entering work orders.
Sure, that would be, if we could look into that and see, maybe that might help you too. That's a good program that I knew took place some years ago. When COVID came, a lot of things got disbanded and overlooked.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did lose a lot of our volunteers. Part of Gregory's position as the recycling enforcement coordinator will be reaching out to different communities and looking for volunteers. He sent an email to all the counselors to introduce himself earlier this evening. And so we are looking for that. We're also looking for more activity within the recycling subcommittee that we have, which people can send out an email to myself or Stephen Green, who's the interim chair. We're also looking for a chair, so.
I also am concerned about recycling and how we can make this a better program, and I think it starts in the school system. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have someone from your office go into the schools to teach them that about the new system now that's taken place, that you can't put clothing in your recycling for that matter. So there's some new laws here that people probably don't understand. I have a grandson, he has autism, and he's a stickler for certain things, and it happens to be recycling. He'll come in and say, Nana, this goes there and that don't go there. And so I have an inside person that can tell me. So I think if we could get to the youngsters when they're young, just to let them know, for example, do they really know that if you have a shredder and you have that paper, you can't put that in recycling? Do they know that? So maybe we can start with the young. So maybe we could implement something like that in the school system. I'm not saying every day you have to be out in the school system, but if there's ever some classes that kids would like to know, we could, work together on that. That'd be nice. Any questions? Any concerns? Gunther?
I just wanted to thank you and the City Council for the opportunity tonight to clarify on those issues, and feel free to reach out anytime. Thank you.
All right, I'll do a report. I'll do the report of progress with the help of my colleagues, hoping that we get there. Thank you so much for taking the time to come down here with us today. Thank you so much. So, did you have like a motion or whatever? You
I
had.
do. I have a motion to adjourn.
Oh, but did you have an emotion about a report that you wanted about? You didn't? Okay, you didn't. So motion to
Motion to adjourn.
adjourn by, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.